still kept everything. Then he would be a target for the identity theft market.
The following program, Normal Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting norml.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of Normal Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of Normal. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents Normal Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, Normal's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome. It is, let's see, what day is it today? Thursday, April 26, 2012, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. I'm coming to you live from Tucson, Arizona at Saguaro Studios, and we are having a good time here. We're roughing it, we're toughing it in Tucson. That's what we're doing. We're calling today's show Toughin' It in Tucson. I got the remote studio all set up, and as I'm getting ready for the show today and getting ready to go on live, I find that the current version of Webcam Max and the current version of Ustream aren't getting along. So you just get to look at my smiling face, no fancy graphics today. We're going back to our roots like a real radio show. All right, let's go to our virtual studio in beautiful Astoria, Oregon, where our senior news editor, Cannabis Carrie, is hanging on the line. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Russ. How's it going?
Oh, well, we're getting by. We've got 2 laptops this time, so things are better. And I believe it's about 90 some odd degrees outside, but it's nice and cool inside, so we're doing okay.
Wow.
So Carrie's got the hemp headlines for us coming right after the first break. So what do we have in the news today?
Well, today we've got some Canadian news. I want to talk, we've been talking recently about how conservative Harper's administration has been up there. I've got some good news for Canadian people, at least on the West Coast. Also, I've got some celebrity juice for you. But coming up first, our big story today, of course, Connecticut passing some major legislation there. I'm going to tell you all about that coming up in the hemp headlines.
All right. Great news coming up here from Cannabis Carrie. Stick around for that. Also on today's show, I don't know if you caught my tweets out earlier from Radical Russ, but on last night's Conan O'Brien show, Brian Posehn, the comedian, was on, and he told a nice 2-minute story about our own Ganja John. That's right, our own Ganja John. Yes, I'm telling you, made it to national TV. So we're going to talk about that, and I will play the audio for you since I don't have video capabilities today. We will get you the audio from that, but it's a pretty funny story of our own pirate Ganja John. Also coming up on the show today, you're going to get not 1, but 2 radical rants. I'm going to give you a look at President Obama's slippery statements on medical marijuana recently, and we're going to take a look at drug testing as it was just ruled against in the state of Florida. I'm going to take a deeper look at drug testing in America. And if you think you're hearing an echo, you're not. It's just the acoustics of this room. It's a big cement, flat-walled room. Not exactly made for audio, but hey, it's Saguaro Studios here in Tucson, Arizona. We're going to do the best we can. Thanks for joining us. And remember, tomorrow we're going to bring you live coverage from the Patients Out of Time conference starting at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. And that's Pacific time, running till 4:30. So stay tuned for that on Friday and Saturday.
You're listening to Normal Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hi, I'm Radical Russ. One of the best things about marijuana is the wonderful aroma. But when you travel a lot like I do, that aroma becomes a suspicious smell. That's why I endorse stealth-products.com, the leaders in smell-proof containers. From smell-proof vacuum bags to smell-proof backpacks and duffel bags, all the way to smell-proof digital safes, stealth-products.com has you covered. Stealth-products.com brings you safe, secure, odorless layers of protection with activated carbon fiber. Backpacks and duffel bags are simple black so as not to attract attention with a logo or flashy design. Now, nothing is perfectly odor controlled from the detection of drug dogs, but with proper vigilance, containers from Stealth-products.com will help you avoid nosy humans.
You're now listening to Elliot Beats.
Stealth-products.com. Stealth-products.com.
What's up, guys? This is Miss High Times 2007, and you're chilling with us here at the NORML podcast.
Weedmaps.com. I'm Radical Russ from NORML. My job as outreach coordinator, I travel every month, and when I'm on the road, I need a fast, accurate way to find the medical marijuana dispensaries in the area. So I turn to Weedmaps.com. Weedmaps.com has the best dispensary locator online or on your mobile device. Search by zip code or let Weedmaps find you, and in seconds you'll have the addresses, phone numbers, and customer service reviews for the medical marijuana dispensaries in the local area. Weedmaps.com also has a section devoted to helping you find a doctor who understands and recommends medical marijuana under your state's law. You can even check prices on the Medical Marijuana Stock Exchange. Coming soon, you'll even be able to find the listings of NORML attorneys and chapters, local head shops and grow shops, and the best weed-friendly businesses. Weedmaps.com has the information you need to be an informed cannabis consumer. Visit Weedmaps.com today, a proud sponsor of the NORML Network.
Inhaling deeply of the sacred smoke.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's NORML News with Cannabis Carrie.
Yesterday, the Connecticut House of Representatives voted 96 to 51 to allow medical marijuana in the state. The vote came after, I'm used to hearing applause. Sorry, Russ. The vote came after a very long 7-hour debate that started around 4 p.m. There you go. The bill would allow patients that have cancer, glaucoma, HIV, AIDS, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, spinal cord injuries, epilepsy, malnutrition, wasting syndrome, Crohn's disease, and thankfully post-traumatic stress disorder. They have to have a recommendations from a doctor that cannabis could help them relieve their symptoms. And they also left an opening for the State Department of Consumer Protection to be able to determine other eligible diseases and conditions in the future. Now, after getting a written consent from a physician, a patient would then be able to register and obtain marijuana for the purpose of their medical care. They could also have one caregiver handle the cannabis and give it to them. The medical cannabis would be produced by 3 to 10 producers who would have to pay $25,000 in fees to grow marijuana to send to the dispensaries that in this case, interestingly, would be run by licensed pharmacists. The debate was started off in the afternoon by House Minority Leader Lawrence Cafaro Jr., a Republican from Norwalk, who warned that allowing this medical marijuana bill to pass would put schools and universities having to condone marijuana smoking on their campuses, saying that they would either be breaking the law or discriminating. It wasn't clear, and saying that the potential for abuse of a medical marijuana system was obvious. And of course, not to disappoint, there was a representative, in this case, Brenda Kupachik, a Republican from Fairfield, that entered the following comments into the testimony, quote, "I don't want Connecticut to end up like California, where people are getting marijuana for a hangnail." And then there was Republican Lawrence Miller's comment saying, just like California, if we pass this, we're going to end up in a big fiasco. Now, on that late night vote, it ended with 17 Republicans out of those 96 on the yes side, and interestingly, 17 Democrats on the no side of the 51 votes. Democrats control the Connecticut House by a 99 to 52 margin. Now, with the bill passing the House, it must now go to the Senate, which looks pretty good, Russ. There's only 36 members in the Connecticut Senate, and there's a split of 24 Democrats to 12 Republicans. And even more promising news for Connecticut, Governor Daniel P. Malloy on Wednesday told reporters that if the bill gets passed the legislature, he will let it become law.
All right. Well, that is good news coming out of the Nutmeg State. And good news on the conditions, too. I mean, PTSD and malnutrition. I haven't heard of any or medical marijuana state that's taken that one up. So that's great news to hear all of those. But the thing that still bothers me about this, hearing that part that has to be licensed pharmacists. that are involved with the dispensaries. I just don't know how that's going to work out. I know pharmacists have all sorts of regulations involved with their DEA licensing and such, and I just worry anytime we get the real mainstream medical world, doctors, pharmacists, and actual prescriptions and pharmacies involved with this, I worry about the feds being able to preempt that through DEA licensing, Controlled Substances Act, and all of that kind of stuff. Now, Carrie, was this a bill that had also home grow, or was it just dispensary only?
Dispensary only, unfortunately. Russ?
Yeah, that's the other hang up for me, the dispensary only system, where I really fear that we'll get all these patients locked into these dispensary only systems, and then they will have all the FDA trials for Sativex and these other cannabinoid pharmaceuticals. Then the pharmacies or the dispensaries, will just start carrying those cannabinoid pharmaceuticals, and when the patients complain, well, where's my whole plant? Where's my regular bud? Well, gee, you don't need it anymore. We got Sativex. We got this inhaler, we got this spray, we got this cream, we got all the things you could possibly need to treat your condition that we now have scientific evidence proves works just as good or better than the plant itself. So, gee, you don't have any need for the plant anymore. So all these states now that have passed medical marijuana, especially on the East Coast, where the template now seems to be no home grow, register at a dispensary, are now locked in to supplying just these cannabinoid pharmaceuticals. And then the effort to try to legalize just plant marijuana for everyone becomes that much harder to do, because now you don't have the sympathetic stories of the cannabis patients to work with anymore. You don't have the person in the wheelchair, the person with the multiple sclerosis that can generate sympathetic headlines for being denied a plant. Now we have an answer for him. Oh, we got a spray, we got an inhaler, we got something that'll work just as fine for you. Everybody else who just wants the plant is stuck just being a doper, just being someone that wants to get a hold of some weed to get high. So that's why I always worry about these particulars in these medical marijuana laws. That said, it's always good whenever we move the ball forward in any way to try to protect more people from arrest, to get more of the truth out about marijuana. We just have to be very careful how we steer this ship as we get closer and closer to legalization.
And Western Canada, much like Western U.S., seems to be a bit more progressive in pushing the government to legalize cannabis. 8 British Columbia mayors are now calling for legalizing cannabis because they think it would reduce the crime that often accompanies black market industries. Led by Vancouver Mayor Gregor Robertson, they sent an open letter to the provincial government Premier Christy Clark and to opposition party leaders, asking them to support a taxation and regulation approach to marijuana. The letter said that as mayors of BC municipalities, they are fully aware of the harms that stem from a largely illegal marijuana industry, saying, quote, "Our communities have been deeply affected by the consequences of marijuana prohibition, including large-scale grow ops, increased organized crime, and ongoing gang violence." Now, they also said it was time to tax and strictly regulate marijuana under a public health framework. They said by regulating marijuana, the government could rationally address any health concerns of marijuana, all while raising government tax revenue and eliminating the huge profits from the marijuana industry that now flow directly to organized crime. This letter from current sitting elected officials comes after a similar open letter from the 4 former BC Attorney Generals that sent a letter to Premier Clark and the provincial assembly member and the new Democratic Party leader Adrian Dix, asking them also to endorse legalizing, taxing, and regulating marijuana on the province. Now, Vancouver's Mayor Robertson has also announced this week a motion for the Vancouver City Council to endorse the, quote, Stop the Violence BC program, something that they will vote on next week. The Stop the Violence BC is a group of educators and law enforcement members, past and present, legal experts, and public health officials that are educating the public about the link between cannabis prohibition and gang violence. The group is calling for regulation as a way to cut organized crime profits that result. The group and the letter from the mayors both point out that the most recent Angus Reid poll shows that only 12% of British Columbians support the current approach to controlling marijuana, and that 66% of the voters support taxation and regulation. So it seems that at least in the western parts of Canada, the recent push from the Harper administration for tighter regulations and mandatory minimums is getting a little pushback from the British Columbia citizens.
Absolutely. The BC Bud is well known, but legendary how much of their economy relies on the marijuana trade and just how extensive its use is throughout British Columbia. And this is something that we're finding all throughout North America. This is not anything, out of the ordinary. We're seeing this all around. And the most recent story, and this just appeared on the NORML.org page today, is another opinion poll from Angus Reid that shows that 74% of Americans support alternative penalties for marijuana. They surveyed people in the UK, in Canada, and the United States. Over 1,000 Americans, over 2,000 Britons, over 1,000 Canadians were surveyed in March. And the results show an overwhelming majority of citizens in these countries no longer believe marijuana possession should result in jail time. This is from Angus Reid. They wrote, majorities of respondents in the three countries, Britain, 56%, Canada, 68%, United States, 74%, welcome the concept of using alternative penalties, such as fines, probation, or community service, rather than prison for nonviolent offenders. At least 7 in 10 Britons, 70%, Americans, 74%, and Canadians, 78%, believe personal marijuana use should be dealt with through alternative penalties. Support for similar guidelines for credit card fraud, drunk driving, and arson is decidedly lower. But it just goes to show you we still have a hurdle yet to overcome, and that is the need to punish marijuana smokers at all. I have yet to see anyone explain why we need to try to stop an adult who's not harming anyone from using marijuana. If we're going to go to fines and drug courts and rehabs, we're still operating under the assumption that there's a need to stop people from using marijuana, that marijuana as in and of itself is per se bad. It's just malum in se. It's just an awful thing no matter what. And I reject that. I think that we can have responsible use of marijuana. I think adults can use marijuana without much incident, without much harm to the rest of society. And by God, if we allow people to smoke cigarettes, jump out of airplanes, handle snakes, drink booze, engage in risky sex, and eat 1,400 calorie cheeseburgers, I don't understand why we can't let someone alone if they want to smoke a joint on their porch.
Well said. And here's some celebrity juice for you. Wiz Khalifa was busted this weekend with marijuana. And I actually loved this story because I had never heard his real name before. Cameron Jabril Tamaz, better known as Wiz Khalifa, was caught smoking in his Holiday Inn room in Nashville, Tennessee. The 24-year-old rapper and a friend were smoking marijuana in the room when fellow guests complained about the odor coming out from under their door. According to the local paper, hotel staff had already went up to their room once and asked them to please be cool. The police were called, and one of them said that Khalifa threw a blunt out the window that was later recovered. The police said that the pair denied they had any more marijuana on them, but when pressed, they confessed to having a little bit more. Now, to be exact, that ended up being 3.7 grams. Both men were given a marijuana possession citation, which is a misdemeanor there in Nashville. They're scheduled to show up to the Davidson County Courthouse by May 14th for booking on the charges. Khalifa was in Nashville to play a Rite of Spring concert for a good friend of ours, alma mater, Vanderbilt University. Khalifa reportedly headed out of Nashville on Sunday, hours after that police encounter.
Oh my gosh. So back in Nashville, Tennessee, home of Chief Greenbud, and the part of this story, I'd heard that Wiz got busted. I hadn't heard the part that they'd already gotten a warning, that the hotel staff had already told him to cool it. So right there, you kind of lost a little bit of respect from me. It's like, you got your warning, you got your chance, man. Most people don't get that kind of chance. I mean, I just had a similar situation, and I'm not saying I'm Wiz Khalifa or nothing, but I was in Houston, Texas, and in the hotel there, I invited some of the guys up from Dallas-Fort Worth NORML, and we were enjoying some herbal relaxation when we got the call from the front desk. We got a complaint from the people next door and got a security guy knocking on our door telling knock it off. And so I did. I put out the joint, we put things away, and I sent everybody on their way. But see, that's the thing, Wiz Khalifa, he doesn't have to really care about the first warning or first offense, because when he gets busted with this kind of stuff, he's going to have a high-priced lawyer. He's going to have plenty of money to deal with it. He's going to have assistants and so forth. But you gotta wonder, if the judge there in Nashville is going to come down tough on him to try to set a precedent, send some sort of message that just because you're a superstar, you can't go around flouting Tennessee law. We don't know. I mean, we'll just have to keep our eyes on this and see how this turns out later on the week. Thanks, Carrie, for the headlines. Also, just wanted to update everyone on the schedule here on Normal Show Live. Tomorrow, we will be bringing you live coverage of the Patients Out of Time conference here in Tucson, Arizona. That will run from 8 o'clock Pacific till 4:30 Pacific time, and we'll get that all set up, we hope, soon enough in the morning to be able to start right on time at 8. There are so many amazing seminars that are going on and presenters. Many people that we've interviewed here on Normal Show Live, including Clint Werner, Irvin Rosenfeld. We've got Robert Platshorn, the Black Tuna, is going to be there. And if you want to get more information on this, you can just go to their website at medicalcannabis.com, medicalcannabis.com, and they've got the Patients Out of Time conference there available for you, all the information that you'll need for that. So you can, let's see, medicalcannabis.com, and then we'll have all sorts of coverage tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday from the 7th. It's the 7th National Clinical Conference on Cannabis Therapeutics, also sometimes just known as the POT Conference for Patients Out of Time. Medicalcannabis.com for more information. There's still time to register online. You can learn all about the endocannabinoid system. We got so many patients. Marilyn Mathry is going to be there. So many people we've interviewed from Normal Show Live, Gary Storick, and so many others. Check it out Friday and Saturday right here at live.normal.org. All right. Well, that sound means it's
time for a break, Russ?
That is right, Carrie. It's time for a break. And since this is Tucson, Arizona, and I'm in front of a big window, I have to take my break elsewhere. So we'll be right back after this.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support Normal Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
I'm Sub Cool from Team Green Avenger. At TGAgenetics.com, we are working on the leading edge of medical strains. Our strains are rigorously tested for THC, CBD, THCV, and other critical cannabinoids. Know your grow. Check out our genetic diversity at TGAgenetics.com, the home of Jelly Bean, Jack the Ripper, Vortex, and other award-winning cannabis strains.
In this experiment, we will be testing the effects of massive amounts of high-quality marijuana on a man's ability to play video games while having sex.
Science!
Hi, this is Willie Nelson. Friends, it's time we legalize the responsible use of marijuana and stop treating marijuana smokers like criminals. We're destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of good, hardworking Americans every year in this country for no good reason. There's absolutely nothing wrong with smoking pot. For more information on how you can help legalize marijuana, please contact NORML at NORML.org.
It's time for your daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we bring you tunes for Groovin' Thursday. Our salute to all the dopest beats and killer rhymes that we find in the best of rap, hip-hop, soul, R&B, and funk. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on Normal Show Live, send it to us at stash@normal.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
Welcome back, everybody. 23 after the hour here, and I'm in Tucson, Arizona. I'm staying at the offices of Arizona for Normal, AZ4normal.org, and also on Twitter. And big thanks to them for putting me up here. It's an all cement kind of block southwestern home here. And so very Spartan, but it's also just perfect because I'm isolated, I'm alone, I can get my work done. Everything is really cool. But being here in Tucson, Arizona definitely is a different feel than Portland, Oregon. And it's not just for the fact that instead of 60 overcast and humid, it's 90 clear and dry. The weather, of course, is very, very different. But the number one difference for me is that palpable sense of being oppressed. that I feel being here in Tucson, Arizona. This feeling that, just going about my daily life like I would normally do it, if I were caught at any moment, could mean major jail time here in this state. And it does give you kind of a paranoid feeling to have to live that way. Being here in the room, I've actually had a couple of people. This used to be a house that someone lived in, and I've had a couple of people stop by already, knocking on the door, looking for so-and-so, whoever it is. And this is the kind of neighborhood where, there's a fence that's all sheet metal fencing, and there's trailer parks down the street. I mean, it's that kind of neighborhood here in Tucson, where they were probably stopping by to visit their dealer or, somebody used. And it's a little uncomfortable feeling like, oh my God, people know I'm here. They could probably smell the smoke. I've got all this electronic gear. So it's got me a little bit on edge. And this is a good thing. This is a good thing because I've been out traveling around and staying in these fine hotels and, the luxury of being in Portland, Oregon, or in California, or in Washington, or in Colorado, where you feel really safe. It's good to get back here and get that paranoid feeling back in my bones to remember this is how most of us live. This is how most of us cannabis consumers have to exist. We have to not smoke in the front room for fear that, we might have to answer the door and someone will smell something. We have to have that can of Glade handy, Airwick freshener or whatever, to make sure people can't smell what's going on. We have to be very guarded with who we talk to and what we reveal. And we have all sorts of protocols we have to follow. Don't throw the stems and the seeds in the trash. If there is seeds, there shouldn't be, but don't throw the stems in the trash. Don't throw that baggie in the trash. Anything can be evidence. Don't say certain things on the phone. That kind of paranoia is just, thick here in the state of Arizona. And not just on the subject of marijuana, mind you. It's also on the subject of immigration and some other things here in the state. But still, being a marijuana show, this is what I'm feeling right here in Tucson. So in honor of that, and for the fact that I need to go back to the archives to pick out a song for today's Daily Toker Tune for Groovin' Thursday, I wanted to give a song out to the Border Patrol that I see out there. There's, of course, being in Tucson, Arizona, close to the Mexican border, we're seeing a lot of these Border Patrol cars driving around. And just that feeling of a federal police force driving around in your city can also heighten that feeling of paranoia. So in recognition and dedication to all the hardworking people in the Department of Homeland Security, the Border Patrol, and the Customs Service, we give you some George Clinton with the U.S. Customs Coast Guard Dope Dog. Take it away, George. Be right back after this with two radical rants.
U.S. Custom Coast Guard Dope Dog, nickname Buster. Like most dope sniffing dogs, he's gotta have it. Trained to have it. Pick up the tracks of the trafficker, trapping like a rabbit up the coastline. K9, control substance retriever, receiver of the golden nose award for leading to the cash, cashing in on the stash. Now he's in line for his issue of the booty. Never do he do a line in the line of duty. He's a dope dog. U.S. Custom Coast Guard Dope Dog, keen sense of smell, tracking the telltale trails of cartel dope boats. Big dope, never a gram of OZ, kilo, too low key. Gotta be tons of P-blow, bells of lumbo, while other dogs sniffing one another's tails. He can track the profits from a dope sale straight to the stink account. Big banks, banking on the dirty money not stinking. He follow his nose, and as the wind blows, he get a whiff, he take a sniff. Dope dog. Old Mac Uncle had some drugs, C-I-A-I-O. And with those drugs he bought some arms, C-I-A-I-O. It was a bang bang here and a snort snort there. Here bang, there snort, bang and snorts everywhere. Old Mac Uncle starts a war, C-I-A-I-O. But the war on drugs is hell on a dope dog nose. It smells where the nose goes. When the doors close and the dealer wanna hide the dope in the booty, in the twat, then the spot and make the dog sniff his bowel. Foul as they fart in his face. Damn, for a shitty half gram. Dope dog. U.S. Custom Coast Guard Dope Dog, nickname Buster. Like most dope sniffing dogs, you gotta have it. Trained to have it. Pick up the tracks of the traffickers, track them like a rabbit up the coastline. K9 control substance retriever, receiver of the Golden Nose Award. Out of the toxic waste comes a fox that wastes no time. A genetically improved smell capability. The long and wagging tails of the possibility of clone canine. Conceived under the influence of toxic wasted doctors, computer bugs, debugging devices, and vice versa, and various viruses. And until his retirement, no mention, no requirement, nowhere in his pension for the upkeep, the keeping up of the habit. The system have a habit of making sure you get a habit that can't be kept up with unless you're a dope dog. A dope dog. An undercover knock with a bark, he took a bite out of crime. Posing as a CNI dog, he bit the blind. The man with the cane made a coat. Soon as the dope boats float, the media goes comatose. Unrelated over-the-counter overdose. Now become drug-related. Aided and abetted by a lot of apprehension and indifference. The bigger the headache, the bigger the pill. Take your medicine cause you gon' be ill. When I tell you the deal on dope, there's more profit in pretending that we're stopping it than selling it. Selling out, we're in for the shock of a lifetime. Stopping, we might find faces in prime time, faces of yours and mine. Over the counter, under the counter, on the counter, the drugs is not the drugs that drag you through the mud. It's the money, it ain't funny. Oh, my uncle has a bank. Drugs are sure to flow.
Oh yeah, George Clinton. U.S. Custom Coast Guard Dope Dog. That's available on the Hempilation albums. Give a hip to the hip to the hippity hippity hop. Don't stop rocking till the bang bang boogie. Up jump the boogie. When we come back, we are going to play for you the audio from the Conan O'Brien show. Brian Posehn name dropping our own Ganja John. Can you believe that? We've built ourselves a monster, folks. We'll be right back after this.
He can smell the cargo on the boats and planes and trains and things. He can smell the cargo on boats and planes and trains and things.
Have you ever wondered how to make the best tasting and most potent pot brownies possible? Do you consistently seek out recipes that will elevate your marijuana-infused cuisine to the highest levels imaginable? Then it's time to pick up a copy of the official High Times Cannabis Cookbook, published by the world's most trusted name when it comes to getting stoned. Packed tight with more than 50 recipes for irie appetizers, munchy meals, high holidays, stoner sweets, and cannabis cocktails, along with expert advice that demystifies the experience of infusing marijuana into butter, alcohol, and various oils. This book will get you cooking with grass in no time, with special treats inspired by Willie Nelson, Snoop Dogg, and Cheech and Chong, plus all the info you need to stay safe when making and consuming edibles. You will truly learn how to bake a ganja cake and eat it too. So look for the official High Times Cannabis Cookbook wherever finer books are.
Most of us pirates, we go on vacation to North Dakota, you know, because they've got a town called Argosville. Arr, 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 arr. What are you smoking there, boy? Yar, thar be pirates here. Arr, 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 arr. You know why we pirates love the NORML show? Har har! Cause it's always smoking matey. Har 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 har.
This is NORML Show Live. Tune into the NORML Network for the Ganja John Show, featuring outrageous talk and music for the 420 lifestyle, with premiere episodes every Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern and replays at 5 a.m. and 11 a.m. on the NORML Network and online at ganjajohn.podomatic.com. The most devastating effect of the war on marijuana is that it is a war on everyday people like you and me. All week, we speak to the doctors, scientists, celebrities, and politicians who make up the professionals fighting for cannabis liberty. But we never forget about the tens of millions who use cannabis, the millions who need medical access to cannabis, and the hundreds of thousands arrested every year for cannabis, and the tens of thousands imprisoned under our marijuana laws. At NORML, we are the Cannabis Consumers Lobby, and we take this opportunity to share the experience of our cannabis community.
Welcome Welcome back, everybody, and I am just so proud to get to this next subject today. I'm so happy for our own Ganja John, who got shout-out name recognition nationally on the Conan O'Brien show the other day. It was pretty incredible, so yeah. Yes. Huzzah, huzzah. So I was pretty impressed by that, watching that video, and it just made me so proud because, I've always felt that Ganja John's got a huge talent and he's just bound to, shine in this world. So it's really cool. It's kind of like, it reminded me, though, of, you remember the movie Animal House? Yeah, right. Animal House with John Belushi. When I was growing up as a kid, John Belushi was like a god to me. I grew up watching the early Saturday Night Live. Even as a little kid, I was like 7 when it came out, right? But I'd stay up every Saturday night to catch as much as I could before I'd, inevitably fall asleep or whatever. But I vividly remember watching John Belushi in Samurai This and all the different skits that he did, the Blues Brothers and so on. In fact, the Blues Brothers was one of the major influences on me that made me want to become a musician. But anyway, John Belushi in Animal House, if you remember, he played the character Bluto, and there's this scene where he's giving out all the nicknames for the new pledges who are coming into the Animal House, and you're going to be Pinto, and you're going to be Flounder, right? And he gives the nicknames, right? So it's kind of funny because it's turned out that I've turned into that guy. I've turned into the guy who issues nicknames to people. I mean, Cannabis Carrie was never known as Cannabis Carrie until I started giving her that alliterative title, and she's so thrilled by it. She loves it. She can't get enough of it.
I've grown into it. I really hated it for a very long time.
And so, with Cannabis Carrie and Radical Russ, we just needed to have a name for John. And if you're new to the show, the way that John ended up on our show was I met him through the Cannabis Cafe. And he was just this young guy who was born with a kidney defect and born with a messed up eye, and he just like felt bad for the guy. And he was such a nice guy, and such a I just felt like, let's get his story on. And also during that time, we were doing stories on organ transplant and how medical marijuana patients are being denied organ transplants because they're druggies, right? So we had him on the show and interviewed and talked, and he was such a natural, and I could just sense, that there was something there, that this guy was really good. And so we brought him in for more shows. And well, the long story short is he's become the Ganja John we all know and love, our engineer at times, our talent coordinator at times. Now he's pretty much kind of being our liaison to all of these potential sponsors and such. So when we do the Medical Cannabis Cup, for example, while I'm doing all the production of the show and stuff, he's out there interfacing with all these vendors and all these movers and shakers, and trying to get the networking going. So it's a really good arrangement. So anyway, he'd been with us on the early days of the show, and so I christened him Ganja John, and I came up with this logo that you all know, the famous Ganja John logo now, with the little pirate blockhead, I guess we could call it. Well, as time has progressed, of course, Ganja John got his kidney transplant. He had his eye surgically removed, his bad eye surgically removed, replaced with a glass eye, right? So there was a time there he was wearing an eye patch. That's why he got the nickname the Pirate, Ganja John. And, he continued to work with the show. And as things evolved, he got really involved with the comedy club here in Portland, Oregon. I'm in Tucson, but in Portland, Oregon, this place called the Helium Comedy Club. Now, if you don't know, comedy is really big in Portland, Oregon right now. It's kind of the comedy city. And this kind of moves around the country from time to time. Back in the 80s, it was Houston where all the great comics were coming from. But now it's becoming nationally known that, Portland is a great breeding ground for comedy. We got a lot of great comedy going on here. So Ganja John's been hanging around this Helium Comedy Club, and he's really ingratiated himself with the staff there, the management, the owners, and so forth, to the point where he now has VIP access and goes to the club anytime he wants, hangs out in the green room with all these really famous people. He's hanging out with, Norm Macdonald's and, Doug Benson and, people that if he was here, he'd give you a whole list of them, right? Of all these or maybe he wouldn't. He's not really a name dropper, but besides the point, right? He's been hanging out with all these big name comedians. Well, one of the big name comedians that was in town that he got to hang out with was Brian Posehn. Now, Brian Posehn. Brian Posehn's one of those guys, when I say the name Brian Posehn, you go, who? And then you see him and you go, oh yeah, that guy. So Brian Posehn is one of those, oh yeah, that guy type guys. And both comic nerds, right? Poseidon's kind of a comic book nerd. Well, Ganja John is a huge comic book nerd, right? He's totally into all that stuff. So they, hit it off really well and hung out together for a few days, as a matter of fact. So they really had a good relationship. So this is the setup for this clip, which is the Conan O'Brien show and on TBS. And on the Conan O'Brien show, Brian Posehn was on the show, and Conan was asking him about his famous, marijuana use. He'd been known to be a marijuana user and want to know if he was still involved with that. So we're going to go to this clip from Conan. I'm sorry I can't give you the video, but we'll just present the audio for you here from TBS.
You have mentioned on this show before that you enjoy the occasional indulgence in marijuana. Have you phased...
They're about to boo.
Yeah, have you phased that out?
I quit, yeah. I know.
Come on, it's not a Rasta convention. Everyone's settled down.
I boo myself every morning. Boo, remembering things. Boo. Feeling things. Boo, human contact. Boo. But I quit for a couple reasons, and one of the last times I got high, this is crazy, I was up in Portland, Oregon, and where it's very, very legal, and I used to hang out after comedy shows with strangers after my stand-up shows. I'd go out into the parking lot with people I didn't know, and whatever stuff they brought with them I'd smoke, which is super safe, and smoke whatever a stranger hands you, that's smart, and so this is true. I'm hanging out with all these people. There's about 20 of us, and they can't hang. And so at the end of it, it's just me and this one guy, and he's the super stoner. He's got like a stoner nickname. He calls himself Ganja John. But like, he didn't need a stoner nickname because it's like, dude, we can smell you. And we're hanging out, and he pulls out his eye.
What? He had a
fake eye,
right?
And that's how he let me know he had a fake eye. He just yanked it the out. Which, if you have a fake eye, I'm sorry. Like, don't play darts. I don't know what to tell you, but like, use words. Like if you think it's a good conversation piece, use words. Tell me you have a fake eye.
Right.
Then give me the option. Go, hey, would you like to see it? So I could either go, yeah, yes, or no, keep that shit in your face.
He just yanked it out.
He just yanked it out, and I'm high as hell, and now there's this black hole in his face. I think demons are going to fly out. Yeah, what's happening?
Great clip from our own Ganja John. Brian Posehn there on the Conan O'Brien show. We've got that posted up at our blog at stash.normal.org. So if you want to see the video and get a copy for yourself, it's available right there at stash.normal.org. When we come back, Radical Rant.
You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Russ Belville. Yeah, he's a scurvy dog.
Marijuana and alcohol are the two most popular recreational drugs in America. Marijuana smoking is non-toxic, relatively safe, and has a low risk of dependence. Alcohol drinking is potentially fatal, dangerous to society, and is quite addictive. Marijuana is safer, so why are we driving people to drink? That's the question of the new book, Marijuana is Safer, So Why Are We Driving People to Drink? By Paul Armentano, Mason Tvert, and Steve Fox. Visit Amazon.com or ChelseaGreen.com today to order your copy of Marijuana is Safer, or visit marijuanaissafer.com.
Sergeant Craig Simpson. There are other tests which officers can perform that may help them to make this determination. Tests such as one called lack of convergence, which looks to see whether or not a person is able to cross their eyes. Marijuana is a drug that prevents a person from being able to cross their eyes. Interestingly, it is the only drug category that doesn't allow a person to cross their eyes and also does not allow the person to exhibit a jerkiness of their eye. So it's a unique drug in that sense that is the only one to provide that influence.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant.
All right, folks, I wanted to take some time here to elaborate further on President Obama's slippery doublespeak on medical marijuana. Talked a bit about it yesterday in Toker Talk Radio, but I want to make an official rant here on Normal Show Live because I remember 2008 Barack Obama. I remember when he was campaigning. I remember when Carrie and I drove to Denver, Colorado from Portland, Oregon, just to see him at the Democratic Convention. I remember that guy, and I remember his speeches. I remember his campaign promises. So let's do a little comparison here of 2008 Barack Obama versus 2012 Barack Obama on medical marijuana. If you recall, 2008 Barack Obama said, quote, "My attitude is that if it's an issue of doctors prescribing medical marijuana as a treatment for glaucoma or as a cancer treatment, I think that should be appropriate because there really is no difference between that and a doctor prescribing morphine or anything else. I think the basic concept that using medical marijuana in the same way, with the same controls as other drugs prescribed by doctors, I think that's entirely appropriate. I would not punish doctors if it's prescribed in a way that is appropriate." Well, also what happened in 2008 in a case that was tried in 2009 and continued through 2010, prosecuted by the Obama administration, a doctor who prescribed marijuana as treatment for her own breast cancer and then for others was busted by the DEA. She and her husband, a lawyer who suffers from hemophilia, tended a small medical marijuana garden completely within compliance of California's Prop 215, otherwise known as state law. They were open and upfront about what they were doing, and they drew praise from local leaders for their compassionate operation. The sheriffs, who had been verifying their compliance with state law, then turned that data over to the DEA, who then used their plant counts over the course of the 3-year statute of limitations to top 100, the magic number needed to secure a 5-year mandatory minimum sentence. So, not going to punish doctors if it's prescribed in a way that's appropriate. Now, Obama wants to parse it like Clinton. Notice that he says prescribe and same controls as other drugs, which of course medical marijuana cannot claim because it's Schedule 1. Plus, I'm pretty sure that he'd note that Dr. Molly Fry was busted for growing and selling, not for prescribing. By the way, if you want to know the story of Dr. Molly Fry and Dale Schaefer, please visit freedocfry.com. Doing 5-year mandatory minimums. We're trying to help people under state law. These are people that were busted by Obama's administration. Now let's compare that with this 2012 Obama quote that just came out in the Rolling Stone story. What I specifically said was that we are not going to prioritize prosecutions of persons who are using medical marijuana. As a consequence, there haven't been prosecutions of users of marijuana for medical purposes. No, but there have been prosecutions of the people who supply and grow marijuana for the users of medical marijuana. So technically, you can't say he lied. Sure, there have been 170 raids on medical marijuana providers, threatening letters to landlords of medical marijuana providers, revocation of banking accounts for medical marijuana providers, tax liens using drug kingpin statutes used against medical marijuana providers. But true to his word, Obama has not busted a patient who was simply using marijuana. It's just that the patient has to get his medicine from the weed fairy, I suppose. Now let's go back as Obama is trying to triangulate his position here on medical marijuana that maintains the wishes of Big Pharma without alienating his progressive base while trying to bring in the youth vote that he desperately needs. He's got to get past his other 2008 campaign promises. This, again, from 2008 Obama. I think there are legitimate concerns in not wanting to allow people to grow their own or start setting up mom and pop shops because at that point, it becomes fairly difficult to regulate. What I'm not going to be doing is using Justice Department resources to try to circumvent state laws on this issue. Whereas 2012 Obama is said, I never made a commitment that somehow we were going to give carte blanche to large-scale producers and operators of marijuana. And the reason is because it's against federal law. I can't nullify congressional law. I can't ask the Justice Department to say, ignore completely a federal law that's on the books. What I can say is, use your prosecutorial discretion and properly prioritize your resources to go after things that are really doing folks damage. It's interesting how President Obama can't overlook the federal law on cultivation and distribution, yet he can overlook the use of medical marijuana by patients and its appropriate prescription by doctors, which also flouts federal law. Also, California, Colorado, and Montana had all sorts of state laws on this issue that were circumvented by his raids, but New Mexico's state laws haven't seemed to arouse his attention. It is also interesting that the president is able to ignore completely the other federal laws on the books, but that one about planting and selling cannabis is sacrosanct. So let's tackle this prioritization. Apparently, the priority is to attack the supply side of medical marijuana and overlook the demand side. Somehow, it's the thousands of dispensaries and growers that are really doing folks damage, but the millions of people consuming their product aren't being damaged or causing damage. So it's really not the weed that is doing the damage, but the business of weed, in the president's estimation. Now, when you attack the supply side, the compassionate and, entrepreneurial folks who want to grow marijuana and supply patients legally, in spite of contradictory and vague statutes in medical marijuana states, when you shut the people out who want to follow the rules, you don't eliminate the demand side. In fact, you've emboldened the demand side by reassuring them that the medicinal users of marijuana are not really doing folks damage and are not prioritized. So somebody steps up to supply them, and since you're squashing the people who grow their own in the mom and pop shops, that somebody is an unregulated pot slinger of dubious ethics, and profits he generates eventually enrich a murderous drug lord in Mexico. By not going after the patients, you've allowed for 1.25 million potential customers for drug kingpins instead of allowing states to regulate the business and reap the tax revenues. And you talk of the things that are really doing folks damage without the ironic realization that when it comes to medical marijuana, you are that thing. Unless by folks you mean people, and by people you mean corporations. In that case, I can see how natural people building an industry around a cheap medicinal herb is really doing corporate folks damage. All right, we're going to take a short little break here. When we come back, we will continue with part 2 of that rant here. Stick around. You're listening to NORML Show Live, voice of the Marijuana Nation, and we'll also be taking your calls in hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. We're going to take a look at drug testing in America and a little more on other subjects. So stick around. We'll be back after this.
You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after a word from these 420 friendly sponsors. Wait a minute. This is internet radio. There are no dials here.
Hey, Tokers and Tokettes, this is Radical Russ from NORML Show Live. We're proud to be the voice of the Marijuana Nation and proud to have you on our team. Now, you can represent NSL in your own NORML Show Live gear from handmadeapparel.biz. Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel is one of us and a huge supporter of our show. He's designed the classic blockhead line of NSL shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Worn by Radical Russ, Cannabis Carry, and Ganja John on the show and at live events, the designs feature their iconic logos and the "It's got to be 420 somewhere in the world" tagline. Proceeds directly benefit NORML Show Live and handmadeapparel.biz, one of our community's strongest supporters. You can also get your Cannabis Cure UK, Ganja John Show, Irie Island Hour, and more gear from the NORML Network at handmadeapparel.biz. Visit handmadeapparel.biz today.
Guess what? I got a fever.
And the only prescription is more Velvet. I gotta have more Velvet. Gotta have more Velvet.
You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant.
Yes, Tokers, you are experiencing deja vu. Now, we got two rants today, or I guess two parts of one rant. You can look at it either way, because this is one I call the Obama's slippery doublespeak on medical marijuana part 2. And by the way, a lot of times, in fact, most of the rants that I do here on the NORML network, you can find them as blog posts at stash.normal.org. So if I ever rattle off some phrase or I list some, set of statistics or whatever, and you're like, oh, what was that? You can always just go look it up. Just go to our blog at stash.normal.org, and just about every radical rant there is tagged. In fact, most of them, you can find them on the day that I did the rant. So this one is no different. And we're going back to President Obama's recent statements. He was just interviewed in Rolling Stone magazine, where publisher Jan Wenner noted the growing discontent among marijuana activists and many of his younger supporters for his seemingly breaking his promises on medical marijuana. His 2008 campaign promises to not give it a high priority, that he wouldn't be using Justice Department resources to circumvent state laws on this issue, as he said. And that's the subject of what I'm talking about here. And, a lot of people are starting to go over this. And let me see if I've got that quote here for you. One second here.
What I'm not going to be doing is using Justice Department resources to try to circumvent state laws on this issue, simply because I want folks to be investigating violent crimes and potential terrorism. We've got a lot of things for our law enforcement officers to deal with.
With 170 raids under his belt, it's nice to know that all the potential crimes and terrorism are all taken care of. We're glad that that's all worked out. But I want to just address his comments in the 2012 Rolling Stone issue here, where he said this. What I specifically said was that we were not going to prioritize prosecutions of persons who were using medical marijuana. I never made a commitment that somehow we were going to give carte blanche to large-scale producers and operators of marijuana. And the reason is because it's against federal law. I can't nullify congressional law, Obama said. I can't nullify congressional law. When it comes to medical marijuana, Obama, he's one of those cops, I don't make the laws, I just enforce them. My goodness, I have to do what I have to do. My hands are tied. And yet, I did some looking on the International Herald Tribune, some overseas websites, and I found some quotes from President Obama on the economy. Check this out. Each time, Mr. Obama has emphasized the fact that he is bypassing lawmakers. When he announced a cut in refinancing fees for federally insured mortgages last month, for example, he said, quote, "If Congress refuses to act, I have said that I'll continue to do everything in my power to act without them," end quote. All in all, the White House's agenda is clear. Quote, "I refuse to take no for an answer," Obama professed in a speech carried out earlier this year. When Congress refuses to act and, as a result, hurts our economy and puts people at risk, I have an obligation as president to do what I can without them, end quote. Now, that's in reference to a lot of the acts that President Obama has done recently as far as signing statements. If you remember when President Bush used to do that, issue a signing statement and declare what the law really means, or doing recess appointments when Congress is not in session, when they're blocking his appointees, he can use the power of recess appointment to install the person he wants temporarily until Congress gets around to approving that person. This is what that's in reference to. But I would just point out that he says, if Congress refuses to act, I'll do anything in my power to act without them. If it hurts our economy and puts people at risk, I have an obligation as president to do what I can without them. So if Congress is intransigent here on rescheduling marijuana for sick people when we know the federal government is currently supplying it to 4 sick people, we will see 2 of them here at the Patients Out of Time conference, L.V. Musica and Irv Rosenfeld. So why do you not have an obligation, Mr. President, to try to help our economy by legalizing marijuana, to try to help our patients to take them out of risk by going and doing what you can without them, by issuing an executive order, by using your power as the executive to be able to institute an emergency schedule change for cannabis? It really is that simple. It could be that easy. A stroke of a presidential pen on an executive order could end this madness. But no, when it comes to marijuana, your hands are tied. Boy, can't nullify a congressional law. Let's go back to President Obama's statements here on medical marijuana and why he just can't do anything. Quote, I can't ask the Justice Department to say, ignore completely a federal law that's on the books. What I can say is use your prosecutorial discretion and properly prioritize your resources to go after things that are really doing folks damage. As a consequence, there haven't been prosecutions of users of marijuana for medical purposes, Obama said. Can't ask the Justice Department to just ignore a law. It's a federal law, and he's the president. He's in charge of that Justice Department. He just can't turn and say, you guys don't enforce that law. That would just be anarchy, wouldn't it? We just couldn't let him do that. However, again, as I was doing some of my research, I looked up President Obama's recent statements on the Federal Defense of Marriage Act. Quote, the Obama administration started down this path soon after Republicans took over the House of Representatives last year. In February of 2011, Mr. Obama directed the Justice Department to stop defending the Defense of Marriage Act, which bars federal recognition of same-sex marriages against constitutional challenges. Federal Defense of Marriage Act, signed during the Clinton administration, that said states don't have to recognize the gay marriages performed in other states. And Mr. Obama, to his credit, now I'm not tearing this down, I'm saying to his credit, he told the Justice Department not to enforce that, not to defend any constitutional challenges to it. He wants to see it gone. He wants to see Defense of Marriage Act gone. And this is one way to do it, is to, if the Justice Department doesn't defend it, then the courts have to look at it. It's a big political move. But the point is here, when he wants something, when he wants to not deal with the Defense of Marriage Act, a congressionally approved law, he can just nullify it. He says with medical marijuana, he just can't nullify a federally passed law. Just can't do it. But on the Federal Defense of Marriage Act, yeah, Justice Department, don't bother with that. So look, folks, it's pretty clear to me. If the president wants to create jobs for veterans, prevent drug shortages, raise fuel economy standards, curb domestic violence, nominate various czars, cut refinancing fees for federally insured mortgages, ignore the Defense of Marriage Act, curb greenhouse gas emissions, give states waivers from federal mandates if they agree to education overhauls, grant relief to some illegal immigrants brought to the country as children, ease terms on student loans, overrule stronger anti-smog rules, continue to allow discrimination by federal contractors based on sexual orientation, and wage war in the Middle East, he doesn't need to heed federal law and can just ignore Congress and do as he wishes. But if it's not running roughshod over the states that have legalized medical marijuana, his hands are tied. All right, folks, that's your radical rant there for that. And when we come back, we're going to take a little break here. And when we come back, we'll finish up the show. Thanks for joining us, NORML Show Live. We're proud to be stoners.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a little confusing to me. All these people sitting on their high horses, looking down on us for smoking the plant, growing a plant. Well, I believe in nature's laws. I just want to be free.
From the mountaintops where the wind blows to the green valleys down below, when the snow melts and the rivers flow. I just want to live my life when the trees grow and the air is clean.
I'm proud to be a stoner, yes started smoking weed at the age of 18. I moved out my house, started to write the rap beats. I moved to Hollywood, we was up in the scene. Then with D-Lo, Johnny, Rick, then my homeboy Steve. We was teenagers here, living the dream. Looking up to Daddy X, trying to do this rap thing. On the first couple songs, it was bump, bump. We was so high, getting rolled off the skunk at the 15s in the trunk down Melrose. Bitches in the club, getting drunk, spin flows. Trying to get a record deal, we get signed. I was broke with no money, but that was back in 95. I'm proud to smoke weed and I'm proud of what we done. I'm proud of the Kings and I'm proud of everyone. I'm proud my name was D-Lo, no joke, son. And I'm proud when I'm a dad, when I have a daughter or a son.
Mountaintops where the wind blows to the green valleys down below, when the snow melts and the rivers flow. I just want to live my life when the trees grow and the air is clean, where nature's free to do a thing. Everything is one if you know what I mean. I just want to live my life.
I'm proud to be a stoner. I'm proud to be a stoner. I'm proud to be a stoner. Yes, I am.
Welcome back, everyone. Closing minutes here of Normal Show Live. That's Cottonmouth Kings with Proud to be a Stoner. I hope you're proud to be a stoner or a toker or a pothead or a cannabis consumer or a patient or whatever it is you call yourself to indicate that you are a marijuana user. And at NORML here, we stand for all marijuana users. We don't care why you're using it. All use is none. Could be medical, could be spiritual, could be recreational, could be industrial hemp. Hell, we don't care. If you're using marijuana, that's your right. That's your choice. If a woman has the right to choose what she wants to do with her uterus, we have the right to choose what we want to do with our lungs. Seems like a pretty simple argument to me. And I just wanted to recount a tale here coming from the NORML.org front page, because sometimes as outreach coordinator, I got people, well, what's NORML doing? What has NORML ever done? How's NORML ever helped? NORML doesn't do anything. And it's because a lot of the things we do run below the radar in back rooms and in courtrooms and in plea deals and all sorts of things, legislative lobbying that we do that doesn't really make big headlines. I mean, we did tell the story today of Connecticut and its medical marijuana law, and Eric Williams with Connecticut NORML has a whole lot to do with getting that through, and some other bills there. But just wanted to take some time here to toot a horn here for NORML and let everyone know about the great work of Norm Kent, one of our NORML board members, and his law firm. And this was a case of someone who was out trying to gather signatures. Let me read from Norm Kent's blog here. The city of Miami Beach has agreed to pay a monetary settlement to a marijuana rights activist named C.D. Flash for damages he suffered during a false arrest in October of 2010. The settlement was paid as Mr. Flash was preparing to file suit, claiming that his arrest was a direct violation of his First Amendment right to engage in political petitioning in public spaces. Mr. Flash was collecting signatures for a marijuana decriminalization petition on the Lincoln Road Mall when he was stopped by Miami Beach code enforcement and police officers who incorrectly informed him that he needed a permit to collect signatures. When Mr. Flash asserted that he had the constitutional right to collect signatures in public, he was arrested on charges of disorderly conduct. Mr. Flash maintains that he was never disorderly and complied with the requests of the police, but that he insisted on exercising his right to remain and gather petition signatures. Mr. Flash was jailed for 24 hours as a result of his arrest and was required to face the charges in court. On January 12, 2011, Mr. Flash appeared in court with his attorney, Russell Cormican, only to have the state dismiss all charges moments before the case was called for trial. The prosecutor indicated that the arresting officer, John Pereira, no longer had any recollection of the arrest, despite the fact that it had occurred less than 90 days earlier. Officer Pereira has a long history of disciplinary issues with numerous internal affairs complaints, including one filed by the sister of singer Beyonce Knowles. Mr. Flash was clearly targeted for arrest based on the fact that his political beliefs were unpopular with police officers, said Mr. Cormican, attorney for Mr. Flash. Quote, "It is very encouraging to see the city of Miami Beach offering to quickly settle this case and acknowledge the right of individuals to engage in peaceful political expression, no matter what their viewpoint is," end quote. Mr. Flash was working in conjunction with the Committee for Sensible Marijuana Policy and was gathering petition signatures for a ballot initiative that seeks to decriminalize the possession of small amounts of marijuana. The initiative would allow police officers to give offenders a citation in lieu of arresting them if the possession was for less than 20 grams. The violation could then be satisfied with the payment of a $100 fine. Mr. Flash intends to utilize the proceeds from his settlement to continue working for the reform of marijuana laws. Mr. Cormican and his law partner, Norm Kent, have set up CAFA, Citizens Against False Arrest, to redress grievances of citizens who are illegally prosecuted or arrested while exercising their constitutional rights of free speech. So you can find all of that at the NORML.org website. Great news for the people who are fans of the First Amendment, right to petition. Can't tell you how many times I've heard of our activists being approached by cops, by malls, by all sorts of people saying, you can't petition here. And as long as it's public property, you can petition, folks. Now, you can't go into a mall, like a shopping mall that's private property necessarily. You have to get their permission. It's private property. Can't be in their parking lot. That's private property. But on the public sidewalks, in the public parks, on the public transit, and so forth, you absolutely have a right to petition. And Florida, being one of the few southern states that has that right for petitioning, it's all that much more important that we made this case, that we cut into their pocketbooks in the city of Miami Beach. This is the only way they learn, is when it starts costing them money. So it's a good thing that we got this settlement, and kudos out there to Norm Kent and his law firm for defending this guy and getting this positive precedent set when it comes to marijuana in Miami Beach, Florida. And speaking of Florida, coming up on the NORML Network, we've got the coverage of the Patients Out of Time conference here in Tucson, Arizona, where a couple of Florida natives will be at the conference. We will have Robert Platshorn, the Black Tuna, on our show. He's America's longest-serving nonviolent marijuana offender, was sentenced to 64 years, did 29 years in prison. He's out on tour with the Silver Tour, trying to get senior citizens to understand the need to end Prohibition 2. Also, Irv Rosenfeld, one of the 4 remaining federal medical marijuana patients, is going to be at this Patients Out of Time conference. He's a stockbroker in Fort Lauderdale and is federally allowed. He's allowed everywhere in the United States to smoke weed. In fact, the United States government sends him weed to smoke. We'll talk with him. Also, LV Musica from Oregon is out here. One of the other federal medical marijuana patients will be here to talk more about what's going on in their program and how we need to end marijuana prohibition so anyone who needs it for a medical purpose can get it. We're going to go over the lineup here for the Patients Out of Time conference in Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. We're also going to talk about a new drug testing decision in the state of Florida, and we'll take your calls at 971-533-7111. I'm Radical Russ from Saguaro Studios here in Tucson, Arizona, and for Cannabis Carry, thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care of each other, Tokers. Once again, Patients Out of Time conference coverage begins tomorrow, 8 a.m. till 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time, Friday and Saturday. Check it out, live.normal.org.
This is NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!